google.com. What does shortening the barrel of a pistol do to the bullet speed? As a general rule, an inch less barrel will cost a bullet between 25 and 50 feet per second velocity. So according to the Google, which is always right, an inch less barrel leads to a 25 to 50 foot per second loss of velocity. Now, that is a wide range, but an inch less barrel, that would be like going from a 5-inch barrel, a competition barrel, down to like a 4-inch barrel, which is usually about the length of a carry barrel. And you're only losing 25 to 50 feet per second between those two. But is that right? Well, guys, as someone who has shot a lot of guns, I can tell you one thing, and that is that number seems a little bit low. But there's also one thing that having and shooting a lot of guns gives me the opportunity to do, and that is to test it. Let's get to work. Hey guys, Andrew here. Welcome back to Work the Trigger. So the catalyst of this entire conversation is a gun that came out quite a while ago, but it's got a little bit of a different take. And that gun is actually a gun that I've been carrying a bunch lately. And I've been getting a lot of questions about it. When it first came out, it was a little bit of a conundrum as to why this company would do this. And the company is Sig Sauer, and the gun is the P365 X Macro, the gun that took the longer slide form factor of the XL and shortened the barrel up. And the reason that people are concerned about that reduced barrel length is because with reduced barrel length also comes decreased velocity. Now, if there's one thing that we've learned from the TN Outdoors 9 channel, it's that decreased velocity will adversely affect the performance of a projectile. Okay, we're back at home now because my son decided that he didn't want to come home yet, but this gives us a great opportunity to explain what I'm talking about projectile performance. With that reduced velocity comes reduced expansion. And with a pistol round, expansion is everything. That's like 95% of the damage causing characteristic in a pistol round. So what I have here are two toilet paper wads. Think of them as giant spit wads or bullet projectiles. Here we got a piece of wood. So here we've got our low velocity little projectile here. And when I toss this at the wood, that is our overall expansion of said round. It's down there now. Here, we've got our second one. Now, if I take this and I increase the velocity that I throw it at, you can see that this is a hell of a lot more expansion on this particular wad than this little guy here. And that is why people are so concerned. They are concerned about the performance of their self-defense rounds. But is there anything that we really need to be concerned with? Is that change in that half-inch of barrel loss enough to make a real performance difference? Typically, I don't like to see any more than about 100 feet per second difference, but the key number that I'm looking for overall in a handgun projectile round is 1,000 feet per second mark. Generally speaking, that's a pretty good minimum velocity to get at least adequate performance out of most handgun projectiles. So let's run out to the range, test all those guns, and see just what happens when we get those shorter barrels. Now, just for fun, not only taking out the P365s, we're going to be taking out the Hellcat Pro, a Glock 19, and a couple other guns to see what we get velocity-wise, if barrel design has any say in it, or if it's just the length of the barrel. So let's go hit the range and see what reality is with these shorter barrel lengths. Alright guys, so now we are out at the range to find out exactly how this is going to work out. I brought a lot of guns today because this question has to do with more than just the P365 X Macro here that I have in my prototype Harry's Holsters holster, the 365 that I have here with the True Precision extended barrel, which happens to be about 3.76 inches. That is 60 thou over the stock barrel length for the P365 XL, which this is going to be our catalyst for that, and our stock barrel on the P365. Because it's got more to do with just those guns, we also have our standard size Hellcat, our Hellcat Pro, and as a control, our Glock 19, because nobody has ever really complained about a Glock 19's velocity being too low. For ammo today over here, in our full metal jacket pot, we've got a bunch of Winchester white box. But we're not just running full metal jacket, because this entire conversation only exists because of hollow points. So we do also have 3 different hollow point offerings from SIG. Now, Why SIG? We're running SIG for a couple of reasons. One, it is actually affordable, so that's kind of nice. Two is, supposedly the V-Crown powder burns a little bit quicker to get a little bit more velocity out of the shorter barrels. At least that's what they said when they started bringing out these shorter barrel guns. So these are all SIG Elite Defense V-Crown. So we've got 124 grain standard pressure with an advertised velocity of 1,165 feet per second. Standard pressure 147 grain with an advertised velocity of 985 feet per second. And we've got 115 grain with a advertised velocity of 1,185 feet per second. We are going to run some of these through the 4-inch barrel out of our Glock 19, 3.7-inch barrel that's going to work as our P365 XL, the standard P365 barrel, the P365 X Macro, and for funsies, both of our Hellcats. Let's go ahead and get to work. Okay, we're going to be starting with our Glock 19 as our control, and we've got our ballistics precision chronograph from Caldwell set at about 5 yards out, because that's all the further that I really want to walk out there. It's a swamp. So I'm not going to work averages out on the video because it's a lot of back and forth and I don't have anybody here with me. But I will get an average down here once we're going over all of them as we're shooting. So to start off with our Glock 19, this is the Winchester White Box Full Metal Jackets. 5 shots out of our Glock 19. So we are looking to be up in the upper 10s with the Glock 19 here with its 4-inch barrel. We had a low first shot at 1020-ish, and then we had a high shot up in the 1130s, but we're looking at right around 1100 feet per second with this average. So now let's go ahead and pop out the 365. We're gonna run the True Precision barrel, which is our 3.7-inch barrel next. For our stand-in with the XL's 3.7-inch barrel is the 3.76-inch barrel from True Precision. Again, shooting that Winchester White Box. So remember, with the Glock 19 and its 4-inch barrel, we saw about 1100 feet per second. So we have already, just in that little drop between the Glock and the 365 here, seen an average of about 50 feet per second drop. We had quite a few low balls with that one. I'm not sure if that's the barrel. Now remember, these are different barrels from different manufacturers, so we are not 100% apples to apples here. But honestly, I'm doing the best I can with what I've got with the questions that I've gotten, because this is a common question. So that is our 3.76-inch barrel. Now let's go ahead and bump down to the 3-inch barrel that's sitting in our X Macro and see what that does to the velocities. So now we've got our X Macro out. Again, shooting that same Winchester White Box. So we are looking to be in the lower 1000s. We are still breaking that 1000 feet per second mark, that's kind of my personal mark for self-defense ammo. I want supersonic self-defense ammo. Unless I'm specifically aiming for subsonic, I want that supersonic because that's going to give us the most opportunity for expansion. Now, one thing that can be said about the Full Metal Jacket rounds is they are notoriously varying. Full Metal Jacket has the lowest quality control of any of the ammo coming off the lines, so you do expect a little bit more variation with it, and so far we have seen that with 50 feet per second variations in pretty much each one of these guns. Let's go ahead and jump over to the Springfields now, see what they're pulling with this. All right, first up, let's go ahead with our standard size Hellcat. This is really similar in size to the 365 X Macro that we just shot. And like normal, the Hellcat didn't lock back. The standard 365 looked to be holding about 1040s, 1050s, which is really good. The Hellcat Pro has a little bit longer of a slide, so we should see a slight increase in that ammo velocity. Again, same ammo here. And that is it. So we are looking at significantly higher velocities actually out of the Springfields, both the Hellcat and the Hellcat Pro, than we're getting with the SIG in its appropriate size comparisons. That is an interesting thing that I did not expect to see. Let's go ahead and put the standard size barrel back in the 365 and see what the stock 365 barrel can pull off. So now we've got our standard barrel back in the 365. Let's see what it can do. Remember, we got a couple of sub 1000 feet per second out of the Macro, which is the same barrel length, and we got significantly higher that, about 1100 feet per second with the Hellcat. So let's see what we can pull off with the 365 here. So far it's looking like we're getting a little bit higher velocities out of the standard length P365 than we did with the 365 X Macro. That's interesting, but now let's put it to the test. Let's grab our self-defense rounds and start running those through. We'll go ahead and start off again with our control, the Glock 19. Now we're back with the Glock 19 with the 115 grain SIG V crowns. These have an advertised muzzle velocity of 1,185 feet per second. Let's go ahead and put that to the test and see how consistent we can really go with these. So if you remember, our last ones had a varying consistency of about 50 feet per second. These I do expect to be closer, which gives us an average of about 1,240, which is comfortably and significantly higher than our advertised muzzle velocity on the box. I wonder, with these higher muzzle velocities, what we're going to see with some of the other guns. Let's go ahead and start this time with our SIG P365 with the stock barrel. So now we've got our SIG P365 with our stock 365 barrel. Now, if you remember the last time, this one didn't do great. It did perform slightly better than our X Macro, but I expect to see significantly higher numbers this time. Again, these are 115 grain jacketed hollow points, so we are expecting to see a little bit more consistency and a little bit higher muzzle velocity. With the Glock 19, we saw about a 30 feet per second variation, which is better than the 50 feet that we saw before, but we did get a higher than advertised muzzle velocity. So I'm curious what this is going to do out of our little P365 here. Let's go ahead and find out. So we're going to be looking at about a 1,150s mark, which is solidly in that supersonic range that I would be comfortable with carrying these if I were to carry these. Now, with the lighter grain weights, you do want more velocity. Higher grain weight projectiles can usually expand with a little bit lower velocity, so it is important to keep those velocities up with these little 115 grains, but at about 1,150 feet per second, that is going pretty quick out of our little 365 here. Let's go ahead now and go to the 365 X Macro, which again has this same length barrel, but the last time seemed to do a little bit worse. So here we are with our X Macro. Let's go ahead and do the same thing. Let's find out what this does, and if we see that same loss in velocity, we're gonna have to start figuring out why. So it does seem like it might have been an ammo issue with those first rounds that we shot, the full metal jacket rounds, because these were much more consistent in the 1,150 feet per second range, which is more where I would expect this to sit. Let's go ahead and swap over to the Hellcat now, the standard size, which has about the same barrel length, and find out if we are seeing the similar velocities out of that. See if the people who are making those barrels are sprinkling magic voodoo dust to make those things go faster. So now we've got the Hellcat standard size here. Now we are working with, again, about the same length barrels the 365's working with, but we got higher velocities out of this last time. Let's see if it stands this time. Remember, the 365 is about 1,150 feet per second. And again, this little butt munch didn't hold open. I had to pull it open. So yet again, out of this tiny little barrel, we are seeing a significant velocity increase from the 365, which surprises the crap out of me. Let's go ahead and grab the Hellcat Pro now and see what it's doing. Now, I will say that the Hellcat is significantly snappier when doing this than any of the other guns. It is less comfortable to shoot even than the standard 365. Now this time I'm running the Wilson Combat XL grip on the 365, but I've run this with the standard 365 grip and it is a little bit more comfortable than the Hellcat is. So now we've got the Hellcat Pro. It's got a little bit longer of a barrel. Let's see what it can do. With the Hellcat, we were seeing upper 1100s with some 1200 velocities, which only the Glock 19 so far has pulled off. So let's go ahead and see if the Hellcat Pro can do that. Yet again, I don't know what it is with these Hellcats. They do not hold open well for me. So we're seeing consistent 1200, mid 1200 feet per second with our Hellcat Pro here, which is amazing for the size of gun that this is. That's just with 115 grains though. I forgot one, the 365 XL stand-in. What am I doing? Let's go ahead and run this. This is again that true precision 3.7 inch barrel. Here we go, let's see what we got. So we're looking at about 1200 feet per second. With this, we were looking at 1150s with the standard length 365 barrels. So we are losing about 50 feet per second with the 115 grains between a 3.7 inch barrel and the 3 inch barrel that's sitting in the X Macro and the standard 365. That is a loss, not super significant. Let's go ahead and jump to our next round, the 124s. All right, we've got our standard 365 here. Let's go. The 365 and the Macro are both doing a really good job of maintaining those velocities with those heavier rounds, which means that through either one of these guns, I would be comfortable running 124 grain V crowns through them. Let's go ahead and see what the Springfields do now, because they have been rocking this game. First up is the standard size. Now again, with the X Macro and the 365, we were looking at 1,130-ish, maybe a little bit higher feet per second. I am curious what this thing is gonna do. No, it's not gonna be fun to shoot, but I'm really curious. That hurts to shoot when you're shooting those bigger rounds through this tiny little gun. Especially my finger, it's getting pinched down here in the pinky extension. Now let's go ahead and see what the Pro does, because I am super impressed with these guns so far. All right, here's the Pro. With the standard size, we were looking at like 1,200 feet per second or more average. And the Pro has been doing better. Let's see what it does. So again, we're looking at, it didn't do as much better as I thought it was going to do, but it still did really good with a 70-ish feet per second average over the other guns that are in the same size category. Now let's do the real test. 147 grain V crowns. 147 grains, low velocities, but that is a lot of weight that we got moving. So let's find out what it can do. So we're back with our 147 grain SIG V crowns with our advertised muzzle velocity of 985 feet per second. I do expect to see over 1,000 feet per second in multiple ones of these guns. First up is our Glock 19. So we are getting a much wider variety, a much wider range of our velocities. I will say that these 147 are significantly smoother to shoot through our Glock 19, but the Glock 19 isn't why we're here. It's the tiny barrels that are why we're here. So let's go ahead and shoot the SIG P365 and find out what it does. All right, guys, so we've got our 365 standard size here. We're gonna be sending our SIG V Crown 147s through it. Let's find out what our muzzle velocities are. The Glock pulled in a few over 1,000. I'm hoping this can pull it off, but my hopes aren't high. So let's go ahead and find out. So most of them are in that mid 900s range, but we are getting a lot of variation out of our 147s here. They are more comfortable to shoot. Lower velocities, but they're moving a big bullet. So I'm surprised that they're more comfortable to shoot than the other rounds, as much more comfortable as they are. But with muzzle velocities ranging around the 960-ish feet per second mark, I'm not sure that that's the direction I'd go. But I'm curious on what the X Macro can pull off now that we've done our standard 365. So now we've got the X Macro up. Let's go ahead and find out what the X Macro can pull off. Five. So again, we're getting that much wider range with the 147s through this. Now, I will say the 147s aren't as much more comfortable to shoot through the X Macro here as they were through the standard size. I have a feeling a lot of that is the ports that we're working with, the amount of powder, and the velocities that we're working with. This gun is gonna probably shoot flatter with a higher velocity round, which so far has been the 124s and the 115s. 124s being what I would so far kind of lean towards. Let's go ahead and swap out the barrel in our SIG now and see what it can pull off before we jump to the Springfield and embarrass everyone. All right, so now we've got our true precision barrel in our P365, which gives us a lot longer barrel length. We've been seeing about 50 feet per second more through this, so I'm gonna expect to see about 1,000 feet per second through this setup right here. Let's go ahead and find out. Malfunction, got a bad feed on that. Now, I would say that's probably just the barrel. No. Something not happy. Let's see if it's something with just that round. Uh-oh, I think our true barrel is out of service. We'll get that figured out later. But with those, we did see right about that 1,000 feet per second mark that I was kind of expecting to see. Now let's see if Springfield can just go embarrass everybody again. All right, we're down to our last two before we crunch numbers. First up is the always surprising standard size Hellcat here. Let's find out what it does now. Again, with the standard size 365, we were looking at about 960-ish feet per second. With the longer 365, we were looking right about 1,000. I have a feeling this is gonna be over that. Let's find out. And again, we didn't have a lock back, and it's really peeing me off. But we're seeing, again, 30 feet per second more out of this little barrel than the larger size 365 barrel, and like 70, 80 feet per second more than the standard size P365. Now, the reason that this surprises me so much is because we're working with the same length barrels here. If we were working with longer barrels, like I'm seeing with like the P365 the 3.7-inch barrel and the standard size barrel, I expect to see a muzzle velocity drop there. I don't expect to see that much of a raise, even higher than the longer barrel, out of the same size barrel with this. So let's switch to the Pro now, which has been doing pretty much the best of all of our smaller guns. And let's see what it does. Now, I will say that this was not fun to shoot with those heavy bullets moving that quick. You're not looking for fun to shoot with self-defense rounds. I would run 147 grains in this probably without a second thought. Let's go ahead and grab the Pro. Last gun. We've got the Hellcat Pro here, and our 147 grain SIG V crowns, which again, an advertised muzzle velocity of 985 feet per second. We've been getting higher out of the bigger guns and some of the smaller guns, which blows my mind. Let's see what the Hellcat Pro can do. Again, did not lock open. That drives me crazy. I must just be riding the slide release on this versus the other ones, because I don't know, if anything, I feel like I would be pressing the slide release up and causing hold opens, but all the same, we're looking at 1,020, 1,030 feet per second out of this little gun with 147 grain projectiles, guys. Let's get back to the studio and let's digest what we just saw. So guys, I'm gonna be honest, I've been sitting on this for like a month and I cannot come up with an adequate summary of barrel length per velocity, because we saw a lot of different things in this video. To list off a couple of the different things we saw. Did see muzzle velocity decrease per barrel length. We saw about a 50 to 70 feet per second decrease in about 0.7 inches of barrel. So at the beginning, that 25 to 50 feet per second per inch, that is a low estimate. It is, you're looking higher than that. Then at the same time, you've got the 3-inch barrels, actually 3.1 in the P365 and the 3-inch in the Hellcat, that are doing so drastically different. Add a little bit more for the Hellcat Pro and you've got even more. So I think the two biggest takeaways from this are, one, barrel length does matter, but ammo selection is going to be the key to getting the velocities and the expansion that you want. Again, the SIG V crowns are supposedly better at gaining the higher velocities in those shorter barrels. Thing number two is barrel design matters. Now, we've done a test before with the Walther PDP to test their claim that they gained 50 feet per second from the step chamber in their barrels, and we found out that that was false in the PDP specifically. However, with the Hellcats, it's looking like that's true. I don't know what it is about them. I don't know if it's a tighter barrel profile or if it's a true step barrel. I don't know. But something about those Hellcat barrels, both in the Hellcat and the Hellcat Pro, are gaining higher muzzle velocities. And in the Hellcat Pro especially, which has a 3.7-inch barrel, you're looking at higher muzzle velocities on average than the Glock 19's 4-inch barrel. So design has a lot to do with it. Now, ultimately, the information that I gathered about the pistols that I shot, I would not think twice about carrying a 365 or an X Macro with their 3-inch barrel length. The key is ammo selection. I would not go with anything above 147 grains. Make sure that the ammo that you're picking, you're checking to see what the velocities are. Those still were consistently above 1,000 feet per second. With the Hellcat and the Hellcat Pro, I don't think that it matters too much. The Hellcat, I would probably go with the 124s because they were more comfortable to shoot than the 147. The Hellcat Pro, however, I don't think that it matters. You could shoot whatever you want through that and you're gonna get the right velocities out of it. But going all the way back to the beginning, to the conversation that started this all, does it make sense that Sig Sauer went with the 3-inch barrel in the X Macro with the compensator instead of the longer barrel length out of the standard XL? And in my opinion, yes, for what the X Macro is, it kind of made sense. It makes more sense than sticking with the 3.7-inch longer barrel and then tossing that compensation in front of that. That would have just made the gun's proportions off, made it too long, not optimized it for what it is. They have since come out with that longer slide, longer barrel on top of the larger frame, but for what the X Macro is, you're not losing enough, again, as long as you're making smart ammo decisions, in that shorter barrel length. And I will say that you do gain shootability. The X Macro does shoot significantly better than the Hellcat Pro does. So that's all I've got for this time, guys. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this video useful. If you did, do me a favor, hit that like button down below. If you liked it and you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. If you like the channel and you want to help out a little bit, you can become a member here on YouTube, you can be a member over on Patreon, or you can go over to Variant Innovation, that is our 3D printed gun accessories. I appreciate every one of you guys, and until next time, do your research, get informed, and get to work.